a storm, brewing up a storm, brewing up inside, and his eyes are wild and it can't go on. He's brewing up a storm.
Good morning and welcome to Galway Politics Live, and we've got a very special show today. We have three guests and my co-host Mike Geraghty. The show is about women in politics. Mike, would you like to introduce our
Good morning, Niall. I'd love to. Good morning, viewers and listeners, and anybody who's going to watch the podcast later on. So first of all, I'm delighted to welcome the three ladies this morning. And we'll start out. We've got Fidelma Healy Eames, who ran for the recent European Parliament elections. Fidelma is a former senator and county councillor.
That's right.
And Fidelma was formerly with Fine Gael and has been independent for the last few years. That be right, Fidelma?
Shinny.
Spot on. Excellent. So then Imelda Byrne, who made a great first attempt for a seat here in City Central. I know, because she outpolled me. She did very, very well. And Imelda has run for Fianna Fáil. So first time out, well done.
Thanks, Mike.
Good
Thank
performance, Mother. And third candidate is Sharon Nolan. Did I say candidate? That's because we met so often.
Sharon, it's all good.
So Sharon is with the Social Democrats and has recently been elected to the executive of the Social Democrats. And we had her colleague here, Owen Healy, last week, the first Social Democrat councillor in Galway City Council. So you're very welcome as well, Sharon.
Thank you so much.
So I was just wondering, guys, maybe starting off with Sharon, would you like to give us a little intro to yourself and tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Sharon Nolan and I've been living in Galway here for the last 10 years. I'm an activist and campaigner and I ran in the recent local elections for the first time in Galway City Central. So I got to see a lot of Imelda and a lot of Mike, and it was a really fantastic experience. Fortunately, it didn't work out for me this time around. I finished off 7th, but I was very proud of that achievement. And since then, I've been returning to a lot of my grassroots activism, and I'm currently on the committee for Galway Community Pride, which is going to be happening from August 12th to the 18th. So please come along and support that.
Excellent. Thanks, Sharon. So Imelda?
Imelda Byrne, and thanks, Mike. As you said, I ran recently for Fianna Fáil in Galway City Central. I suppose my work in education over the past 30 years, I have been passionate about equality of opportunity, mainly in relation to education, but also in relation to health and many other areas. So through my work, I continue, I suppose, to work on the ground in ensuring that the most marginalised and the most disadvantaged and the most excluded in our society are given every opportunity that we can through education at NUI Galway to participate in society.
Excellent. Thank you. And Fidelma?
Good morning, everybody, and Niall and Mike, thank you for inviting me to join with this panel here this morning. Fidelma Healy Eames. I am a former politician. I was actually 12 years in elected politics, 3 years, as you mentioned, Mike, in Galway County Council, and almost 9 years in the Seanad. I stepped out of politics in 2016, and I did contest the recent European election. So I suppose my main reason for that was I saw when I was in national politics that so many of the decisions being made about our lives are initiated in Europe. And up to 80% of the legislation that we would have enacted came from Europe. And I just felt, and this was probably my reason for going into politics initially, is do you want other people to be making the decisions about your life and people like you, or do you want to have a say in that? And I've always wanted to have a say in that. And I just felt that Europe, you know, for many people it's very far, it's out there, but it's very real when it touches your door. By background, I am an educator as well, like Imelda. I'm back teaching now, so I've spent the last year as an acting principal in Balmore National School and teaching children actually with autism as well. So for me, I suppose education is the great liberator, and it is the opportunity to be who you want to be. And I really think that was an important dimension for me to echo and to stand up for in politics. And I had the opportunity to be the education spokesperson. I think it might
Which
be,
I well remember.
for Fine Gael at that time.
Did a very, very strong job, I think, in terms of education in the Seanad, yes.
Thanks for that.
Yeah. So listen, what we'd like to know really is what are the issues that affect women in general. I mean, it's a broad brush because it's not the same for every woman, obviously, any more than it's the same for anybody. But what would be sort of, I suppose, the key issues that would tend to affect women more than, let's say, men?
To affect women in politics?
Yeah, in general.
Well, I suppose I do have some experience to say a few things here. First of all, I'm Galway based. And when you're elected to national politics and you're 3 days a week in Leinster House, that's a very big issue. Like, I have 2 young children, and so childcare is a huge issue. And being country based is a huge issue. So that being away from home is a challenge. And only for my husband was so behind me and so committed, there's no way I would have been in politics.
But is that not an issue that affects men and women? Like, I would certainly say from the country point of view too, childcare.
Sure.
I mean, men have a certain responsibility. I mean, obviously there are realities to do with childcare in
Well, I
society.
suppose if you look at I would agree with you, but if you look at the facts are that right now we are 81st in the international standing for women in politics.
Right.
In 1990, actually, when Mary Robinson was elected president, we were 30th. So we are falling. And whether we like it or not, women have a particular, I suppose, attachment and duty feeling, I think, around being a mother. And there's no, as I said to you, I'm talking to you from my experience, there's absolutely no way that I would have gone into national politics if I thought my children were not adequately cared for. Or, weren't being given a reasonable chance, and only for my husband was behind me in that I know I wouldn't have done it. We did a report in 2009 actually on women in politics, and 4 C's came out, and there were cash, childcare, culture, and there was a candidate selection. And I would add another one.
So the 4
and
C's,
it's the country
the 5
one.
C's, country.
Yeah, I would. The fact that we're country based, we're so disadvantaged compared to women that are city based.
That would be an interesting study, actually. Women outside of Dublin versus women in Dublin.
Yeah.
Be quite an interesting one.
Absolutely.
We might ask the other ladies present what their views are.
Hold on.
And the general question, maybe Sharon actually, what are your views sort of in terms of the issues generally?
The issues on...
In relation to women participating in the
because I
political...
think I don't have children yet, so I haven't, but it's something that I'm aware of when people ask me, am I going to run again? I'm like, I don't know, there's so many factors that could change. But I think even the platform that we get as women is completely different, because I think I've spoken on more panels about being a woman than I have about anything else. And I think one of the most surprising things about when I was running in the local election is how much I spoke about being a woman and being a young woman, and not my policy and my vision for Galway and what I wanted to change. And I think that in 2019, it's disappointing to think that we went from 21% of representation of women in local politics to the huge 23% result. But we had more women candidates than ever. We had about 30% of women candidates. But I think that my own political background, coming from the Social Democrats, I think I came into this race a little bit naive, because I have a party where the 2 leaders are women. We had more women candidates than men. We have a huge, very active women membership. So many of our branch chairs, our campaign managers, or candidates, or members are all women. And going from that to then the kind of more general political sphere, where it's that's
Why
a little
do you think
different.
that is, Sharon, that the Social Democrats have more women?
Personally, I feel it's a real cultural welcomeness, because where a lot of our issues that you would see, they are reflected in our policy, but also through so many of our events, there's almost always going to be childcare provided, or considerations for those different limits, or helping pay people to get to events.
Okay, so the environment is better.
Yeah, and I think that now it's the only political party I've been in, so I know I'm a little bit biased in my experience with that. But it's been hugely welcoming, and even just with a party that's 4 years old, like with the fact that I can be a young woman and I can be so involved and be like a member of the national executive, bring my experience of being a candidate. It's really great to have like a platform where that's respected.
But I think it's crucial that you're women, that your leaders are women.
Yeah.
I mean, leadership shows the way.
Oh, completely.
Yes, and we've had a comment in from one of our people on Facebook who said basically the bigger parties tend to have a bigger problem in that than the smaller parties, because the new younger smaller parties like the Greens and the Social Democrats seem to have more women candidates. And I'd like to move to Imelda, because she was one of 6 candidates for Fianna Fáil in the local elections in Galway City. The only woman, as far as I know.
Yes, that's correct. And I think what both Fidelma and Sharon has spoken about there, I think, is the whole issue of culture in relation to women being involved in politics. But I suppose growing up, and I know many people have heard this before from me, is that I had a fantastic role model in that my aunt was the first lady mayor of the city. So maybe naively, as Sharon refers to, is that I grew up, I suppose, thinking that it didn't matter about gender, to be honest, and that once you had the ability and all the rest that people could achieve what their potential was. I suppose this was my first time running in the local election. I would have run for governing authority at NUI Galway twice unsuccessfully, and again it was mainly men who got elected there until a gender quota was brought in as well, and a woman had to be nominated. But in terms of my own experience this year in relation to being a part of one of the main political parties and being the only female on the ticket in Galway City, I have to say there was huge support nationally to be a part of the campaign here. In terms of my own experience and what I was doing in terms of my campaign, I was hugely supported, I have to say, by women, mainly in terms of who's on my team. They weren't all necessarily members of the Fianna Fáil party, but they were committed to seeing a woman and somebody that they knew, I suppose, in terms of the work that I have been involved in myself and colleagues and all the rest, So I suppose I don't think the main political parties are any different in terms of the challenges that women face. And I do agree with what Sharon has said. The newer parties seem to have more women involved at a leadership level, and I think that's the difference in terms of trying to bring about a cultural change. And I think it's a challenge for women in the main parties to get to that level. Would
you agree with that, Fidelma? I mean, obviously you were elected as a member of Fine Gael. I know you've moved on to independent status now, but did you feel that there was sort of a supportive culture for women in the Fine Gael party?
Not initially. I mean, to call a spade, I really think myself that only the gender quota was looked at seriously once we enacted that legislation that said unless you exceed the 30%, you lose 50%, was it, of your political funding. Yeah. So money talks. But this is a really big thing that we're talking about here, because we are actually saying that we're using legislation to change culture. So that's a positive thing, and I think 7 years on is that after the next general election there has to be up to 40% women. Now personally,
that's candidates now.
Yes, candidates.
Obviously you can't determine who's elected.
Oh no, and you should never interfere with that democratic process. However, I think the presentation of candidates, unless a person is on a ticket, nobody can vote for them. Do you know? But what would I say there? I think that, like, personally, I struggled with the notion of a gender quota. I would believe I'm completely in merit. But when I looked at the facts that women weren't getting through, that I do believe it's important to give what I would call a leg up with the gender quota. And I think we put a sunset clause, if I remember rightly, into that legislation, that at a certain point we would be able to eliminate the gender quota.
Yeah, I mean, once it's reached a reasonable
50-50 or whatever. Because obviously we should be looking at 50-50. And, I had the privilege of being in the Rwandan Parliament a number of years ago, when I was a political volunteer there. And they have over 50% women
Yeah.
There's something like 52% women in Parliament in Rwanda. But that came out of the genocide. So like that came out of the fact that, you know, like life changed completely.
Yeah,
for
so
that
I don't think we're advocating any such thing in this country
no.
now.
But equally too, look at what happened with Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
Like right now, every vote that a politician makes in the German parliament is deemed to be a conscience vote. Because the message is never again. Never again. And we do need to be careful about who is controlling the narrative.
Yeah, and can I just comment maybe on, I suppose, the whole thing around culture. I mean, when you see what happened recently in America with Trump and the way he spoke about women in politics as well, and where you have globally, where you have somebody who's leader of the free world talking about women in that context. I think we really have a long way to go, and I come back again, I think, to the fact of having, you know, strong female leaders at every level, you know, not just in politics, but I think everywhere, and the importance of having, you know, role models at every level throughout, you know, primary level, second level, university, and all the rest. I think that will bring about a change.
Who would be your political role model? Because that is one of the questions that we were asked. You know, I'd love to know who your role models actually are. I mean, would it be Margaret Thatcher or Golda Meir, or would it be indeed any of the current Angela Merkel?
I think for me it was definitely Mary Robinson.
Mary Robinson, in Ireland.
And just seeing, like, not even from presidency and what she went to achieve afterwards, and what she's still achieving now on, like, being on, like, a member of the elders, and all of the work that she's doing on climate justice. Because I think that
at an international level, a very respected international level,
she just blows me away. And I was lucky enough to be at her talk for the Galway Arts Festival last weekend. Very good. And it was wonderful.
What about you, Fidelma? Do you have any female role models or male role models?
Yeah,
for that matter?
actually, I would say that probably the people that would have inspired me the most would have been male role models in politics, because we didn't have an awful lot of female role models. But just to say, I do agree about Mary Robinson, because she redefined the presidency.
She did.
She pushed the boundaries out, and she said, we can make this about what we wish to make it, without crossing the boundaries into the legislative forum that were outside of her remit. I mean, she acknowledged the diaspora. And we have like, our population is not just in Ireland, we have 70 million of a diaspora, which is massive. But I suppose people like Mandela would have hugely influenced me. Vision with action can change the world. Gandhi, those type of leaders. Like, I mean, if you look at the likes of Mandela, was it 27 years he was in prison? And I think of the phrase, two people looked through prison bars. One saw
the stars.
One saw the gutter, and the other saw the stars. And he had to see the stars and think of the resilience and the person.
Sean O'Casey fan.
Yeah. Well done.
The plough as well.
But think of like how many times that man would have wanted to give up.
Absolutely.
You know?
So I'm not going to let you off the hook, Imelda. Who would be your role models?
Again, I think Nelson Mandela, hugely, and I think the reason is, and I'm coming back again, is the importance of having people who have struggled and have had to make changes. And I mean, the fact that he never gave up, but also that when he came out of prison, what he was able to do on a political level. And I think it's having people like that and role models like that just don't go through life easily. Do you know? So I think for him, he for me hugely is one of my heroes.
I think a good point. It was either Mary Robinson said it, or it was said over that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world.
It was Mary Robinson.
Was it Mary Robinson? And a very interesting question I got the last day. I want to put to the panel. From Nolan, who, as you know, ran in the East Ward, and Nolan, a former Labour councillor, ran for Aintu, and he was this time around. So she asked me to put this to the panel. She found it very, very interesting that this week's panel was going to be on, and it was from Madeleine Albright, and she basically paraphrases Marv in saying that there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. Is she right? So I'd be interested in maybe Sharon first.
Yeah.
Tell us what you
Yeah.
do with that one. Throw you one out left centre.
It's like a loaded question.
Totally loaded.
Like I do think that it is important to kind of support your own communities, but I also don't agree with agreeing or working with a woman just because she's a woman. Like I think that like it's important to recognize the shared struggles we're going to have, but also like the other issues that come along with different marginalizations, be it class, be it sexuality, be it like your race. Like there's so many different things where if we're just uplifting women for the sake of uplifting women, like we're not looking for more women millionaires, we're looking for more women in every part of society, and we should be trying to work together to get as many like different people who voices aren't represented.
Can I just sort of give you a few figures and facts on that? Because I mean, if we look at Galway City and County Council, I mean, at the moment we have 7 women on Galway County Council, 5 on Galway City Council, but that's 27% on Galway City Council, and it's only 17% or 18% on the county, which is a very low number, really. So there's quite a disparity between city and county there, and I think that's been the case for a long time, Fidelma. I mean, you were elected to Galway County Council, and there weren't many women.
That's true.
But it's fairly flatlined. But if you look at the number of, for example, in Galway City, roughly a quarter of the people here are not Irish. And yet every single member of Galway City Council is Irish, which is quite incredible. And I don't believe that there's a single member of Galway County Council who is any other nationality than Irish. Do you know? So we were accused of having five white Irish males here last day. But the reality is that most of the politicians in Galway City and County are white Irish males. So I think Sharon is 100% right. Do you know, it isn't just about representation to do with women and men. When I was in the Shannon, I was the only IT professional in either of the houses, in the Dáil or the Shannon. I mean, there's certain professions dominate, teachers Fidelma dominate,
perhaps,
and I'm not saying that's wrong.
Yeah, but
I'm
perhaps
just saying,
Neil, you thought you were the only IT professional. No.
Well, there's nobody else who claimed to be.
No, I take your point completely. Look, I mean, I looked at this in my early days in politics, and I remember being down in UCC. They have a school of government, as far as I recall, there, and they did a bit of research on who do women vote for women, and the answer is women do not vote for women unless women connect with women. So women vote for whoever they connect with, which is very decent if you think about it, because really we want somebody to be our voice.
But do men vote for men? Not at all. Not at all. I don't think men vote for men either, do they? That research has been done too.
Well, I don't know about that piece of research, if it has been done, but like I know that women have struggled with getting elected, so that hence the reason for the quota system. But there's another piece, that even with quota systems around the world, women aren't necessarily getting re-elected. And there's attrition of women for the reasons I spoke about earlier, like cash, culture, childcare, etc. So we cannot go too far away from those basic factors, especially when you're living far away from home. I'm not talking about being a member of your local council, because you can go in and out.
Yes.
That's not the biggest issue.
It's
but
to Dublin.
yeah, I think when you have to overnight it away on a regular basis. But so you were mentioning, I do agree with Sharon that there's loads of reasons why people vote, and I mean, let's face it, why do we want to elect women? No more than why do we want men? We want different perspectives.
Yeah, we want to have a properly representative system, really, don't we?
Want
that it should
different
reflect society.
We want, I think the debate is richer for having both sexes there. Yeah. Because you're bringing a different perspective. You're saying, hold on, what about this angle? I mean, take the recent cervical cancer issue. I mean, who are the champions of this? It's women.
Yeah, and actually, let's take that issue, because that's one that a number of people have raised.
Well, it's very
on
big.
Facebook,
It's a very big one for me, to be honest with you, because, and in 2007, a professor in NUIG lab came to me to tell me about the crisis in cervical cancer smear testing. And when this story broke a year ago, I went into a tizzy. And I went back over the records and I found, I was afraid, I knew I'd been given this story. And I was afraid I hadn't represented it. Between 2007 and 2008, I brought it up 3 times to the then Minister for Health, who was Mary Harney.
So you did represent it.
I did. And I made the point that that professor had said to me that the labs were not accredited here. We were outsourcing those tests to labs in the States like Quest, for example, which were only 80% reliable. And he made the point that if we invested in our labs here, we could be up to 95% reliable. Guys, we didn't do it. Look at where we are today. And like, at this point, as I sit here in this couch, I am almost 4 months waiting for the result of a smear test.
And I suspect, I know people too who have similar experiences. I suspect we all do. I mean, is this basic incompetence of our health service, or is this a gender-based issue? I mean, are there other areas of the health service?
Health has been very poorly handled in this country for years.
It kind of has, hasn't it?
For years. And I mean, I do support the recent Sláinte Care report, which would look at a 10-year plan for health. But look at it, I mean, I won't mince my words here. I think the way the Minister for Health is handling this is appalling. Simon Harris, he's trying to make his name literally on abortion, whereas he'd be better off, he'd look at the whole spectrum of issues that affect women. And cervical cancer testing is huge. Women's lives are being lost. Our Taoiseach, I mean, now don't forget, I was party colleagues with all of these people. Our Taoiseach said on national TV after that first death, or was it before it, of a woman, he said, women won't have to be taken through the courts. We'll set up a tribunal. Where is that? Women are taken through the courts. So women are being let down today.
Yeah, do either of our other guests have a view on that particular point? Because
like, I think it's such a tragic and difficult situation where it is leading to the deaths of people before we're taking action. But I think that the way our health service in general is treated is due to the lack of funding that successive governments have given it. And I think that living under like neoliberalism, where we're not going to be prioritizing good funding of public services, where we have this 2-tiered health system where we have private and we have public, and you need to be on that private list if you feel that you're going to have anything that needs any kind of urgent care. And if you're waiting on the public list, you could be waiting up to years and years. And like, I'd agree, like, we have that Sláinte Care plan that's been there to reformat our health system, but our government isn't currently funding it. They're just kicking the can down the road again and again. And I think that without like drastic change in government representation, I'm truly afraid that that's going to keep continuing to happen. Because yeah, it was great, we had like this cross-party like committee that all came and agreed on this, and it was great. It was chaired by Roisin Shirtall, so you know, whoop whoop, Sláinte Care, but it's not being funded.
Should never be compromised.
No.
Never.
And I guess they're right.
Yeah. I mean,
one of the things you think of the
I
health
mean,
system.
it's you know, it's just absolutely horrendous what has happened. But I think the other huge issue for me in relation to health is the mental health issues in which is not specifically related to women. Obviously, it's across all of us and across all levels of society, but I mean, I think that's just an absolute disgrace as well. I mean, I know personally the challenges that people are facing in relation to access to health services, you know, and like and I come back to something I mentioned earlier around the role models that we have and people who make changes. It's about people having vision, the right people maybe are leading again in this area, and to look at international practice. When I was out canvassing, and I happened to meet somebody who was involved professionally here in the mental health system, and he talked about, you know, practices in Australia and Canada where it is, you know, actually funded correctly and you've structured correctly in terms of looking after in the community. I mean, we've moved towards a community based approach to supporting people with mental health issues. It just isn't there, you know. So it is very frightening, I think.
Yeah.
Really, what's happening.
Now,
in relation
I just want to raise a topical issue
Yeah,
which has come up, you know, in the comments here from one of our listeners. Bianca has asked, when a woman is trying to come back to the workplace after maternity leave, they're facing up to 1 year waiting list for creches in Galway. Now that I think is a very, very good point, and we had the recent expose about creches in on national television. I mean, creches surely are something that we need to deal with. I mean, there isn't a sufficient creche in the Dáil. Many of our universities don't have creches which would allow people to go back to. You know, are we doing this well? Are we doing this badly? What are the views?
Well, I think we need probably a new model around childcare.
Yeah.
And the current Minister for Health, Catherine Sapone, is putting a lot of money into creches. But I think we should also be making that money available to women and families so that they can choose to mind their children whatever way they see fit. And that is not the case. There's women who choose to stay at home to mind their children. They are not any less important. They are investing in their children by staying at home. There are fathers who are choosing to stay at home. There's flexible childcare arrangements. So, I mean, we see what can go wrong when the minding of children become an industry.
So it's more
should not
the
be an industry.
Scandinavian model is the sort of thing that you'd be looking at. Really.
I want to see this era of when you're a young parent being a golden era, whereby you make decisions that are right for you and your family, and that you're rewarded for doing so. I don't mean rewarded, but that you're equally getting a stipend or a tax-free allowance. Do you know what I'm saying? So that, because what's happening, the inverse of that is happening. It's saying you're only valued if you go out to work.
Now, how can that happen, Fidelma? You know, because I mean, we've had years
because
and
you have
years.
you have childcare supports when you put your child into a creche.
Yeah, but politically, no, but I'm saying politically, you know, I think what you're saying makes absolute sense. But, you know, moving from where we are now, where we've sort of commoditized childcare to a situation, the sort of, well, let me call it nirvana sort of situation that you're describing, which I'd agree with you. It's absolutely the way to go. But how can we move from where we are now? How can we convince policymakers at all levels that this is needed? I mean, I don't think there is a creche.
Well, it's very easy.
Is there childcare in Galway County Council? Is there any provision whatsoever for somebody?
I don't believe there is. Now, I'm out of that
Do they
council
care?
a good long time. I believe it is possible to convince policymakers, and you convince them by talking about it. You convince them by keeping it on the agenda. You convince them by, you know what I mean, making it a real issue. But equally, it becomes a budgetary issue. Like it needs to be. There needs to be different ways that you can avail of a tax-free allowance or avail of a voucher system that you could show you're putting into your children. And maybe then you'll have councils, etc., providing childcare. But again, I think these are conversations that need to be had. Nothing will change unless you have those conversations. But I definitely do not want to see an industry. The childcare is made into an industry.
Yeah. What do our other guests think about?
I know what you said there about looking at other models. You know, again, I keep coming back to. I mean, you have to have those conversations. We have to look at changing, you know, culture again. You know, and you know, I saw recently about one workplace in Galway where they've gone to a 4-day week. Do you know,
right,
working. So I suppose, you know, we just have to, and again, I suppose I'm very familiar, I suppose, with the Scandinavian model, and again, it's around the whole family, and it's around elderly care as well as childcare, and that is all taken into account when people are trying to get their leave or their work model, you know. So it is so flexible. And we're becoming an ageing population as well, and that's something else I think that we have to be looking at in terms of family care. It's not just around childcare; it's around elderly care as well, you know. So how do we bring about that change in narrative, and to ensure that the family, you know, model, whatever way it is at the centre of how we live our lives, you know. So I think that's going to go, fundamentally, it's going to make us a good society.
And
you
yet
know?
we seem to be moving further and further away from that. Do you know, our constitution has been roundly criticised for being sort of overly focused on the family at times, and that we should move to a much more modern type of view on this. But I mean, we seem to be, it's not just about the constitution. I mean, it's about the actual, as you said, Fidelma, the money. You know, I mean, if there isn't, it's all very well having rights, and I mean, the European Charter of Fundamental Rights is great, but you know, in terms of actual practical childcare measures, I mean, people can't afford what's out there.
I
can
think
they?
the fact,
Not at all.
Sorry, the fact.
Well, if we just let, sorry, I did
Just
address
one
you,
really
Fidelma.
quick thing. The fact that family networks, what, you know, when people, let's look at we're in rural Ireland. Anything outside of the Pale or outside of the
It's
M50
considered to be rural.
is pretty much rural Ireland. Now, we are a little bit closeted here because we're very lucky to live so close to Galway City. But let's face it, the majority of young people have to follow opportunity. And opportunity, by and large, in this country is in the east. It's in Dublin. So therefore, the sons and daughters are abroad. And the sons and daughters are leaving home. And family networks are breaking down. And to go back to...
And yet I hear from people in Dublin, they can't afford relationships, they can't afford families because the cost of housing
Can't do that in
is so
Galway
much.
either.
Yeah, but Neil, precisely, no, what the point I'm making to you is that the family network that was initially rurally based is by virtue of following opportunity, the young people are leaving home. Therefore, to go back to Imelda's point, when elderly care is needed, the family members are no longer local. So really, it is about providing local opportunities. It's about providing rurally based opportunities. And rural Ireland is under severe threat at the moment. I mean, this whole Brexit debacle is really threatening everything.
Now, we're not going to get into
okay.
Brexit today, apparently. We don't love to. We all love to.
And that's a separate
We're
show.
getting well off topic, and we will have a show
But
on
let's
that.
just mention it's really big for rural Ireland,
Yeah.
and our farmers are really at risk. And if we remove the farmer or close him down or her down in rural Ireland, where will the population be?
Sorry, Sharon, you wanted to get in there.
Just so many different points I want to go into. But I think that, like, we have some of the most expensive childcare currently in the world, and like, it seems to come up every time a new family has a child, and we're all trying to reinvent this wheel. Where if we had public services that we could rely on, where, like, exactly what Imelda and Fidelma were saying, where the work of looking after children and raising children is more valued, like, that is such a huge cultural shift that we need, and it is, but we need those public services to back that up. Like, we shouldn't have to be paying, like, I have friends who pay €1,700 a month on creche fees, and, like, that's astronomical money. And if they're, like, that's forcing people into working longer hours, and it's just ruining this balance of life, full stop. And I
Sharon,
think,
I was in Scandinavia looking at childcare.
Sorry, could you use the mic? Yeah.
I was looking at the entire education system in Scandinavia, from childcare right up to adult education. The most you pay in Finland, regardless of your income, is €40 a week for childcare.
and it's like a lot of the models
most.
of public services do come from social democracy,
Yeah.
and would feed very much into
I hear an
the
election
values.
campaign coming on here now.
I believe in being eclectic.
Just as well. But I think that we do, like, it's one of the reasons I'm in the party that I'm in, because I am the young person who had to leave rural Roscommon and living in Galway City, and is working remotely. I need a good internet connection, which isn't
Precisely.
reliable at home.
Yeah, it's
so
providing the opportunities locally is the key for everybody to choose to live the way they wish to live their lives.
And even, like, my partner and I, like, we're realistically, like, we're just about affording our rent at the moment. Like, it's ridiculous for us to even start considering, like, ways that we're going to be, like, what our family is going to look like, because we're still renting with other people, and there's so many different precarious factors that we're working through at the moment that's just pushing forward these family opportunities, these life opportunities that so many young people in Ireland are living through today. And I feel that, like, there's a lot of talking about what will we do for the young people, how will we do it, and not enough listening to like the young people who are this is what we need.
We're not listening to the people themselves.
This is what we need. This is what our generation needs. And it's a lot of, these millennials, they don't believe in houses. They're just eating avocado toast. And it's like, no, we're consumed with existential doom and going for brunch with your friends.
People living in a room together to try and survive.
I think all good policy should be based on need. It should be guided by need and vision.
Yeah.
So that, really, I suppose, if you look at how political decisions are made in Ireland, it's almost like, what way is the wind blowing? Is it just based on an MRBI poll, or which, unless you see a pattern across polls, how much can you rely on it?
Well, there was a recent survey in Dublin, Fidelma, which showed that something like 52%, I think it was, of salary, or it's over 50% of the salaries of young people are now being paid on accommodation, and quite often it's substandard accommodation. Mm-hmm. I mean, how could that actually happen? I mean, how you say policy needs to be changed. I mean, what do we need to do to change that? I mean, we can't.
Well, I go back to the point, you spread out opportunity. While all the opportunity is being amassed in the east of the country.
Yeah, there are houses in Donegal which you can.
Everyone is going to be moving there. Yeah. Do you know? While and can I use the word pisses me off here on this show?
Yeah, go on.
What
say it
really
loud.
pisses me off is that okay? Is that every HQ has to be in Dublin. And now, for example, some of these offices are being set up by the state. Why does the headquarters have to be in Dublin? We're meant to have connectivity. Surely you can put it on a railway line. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just that unless government leads and shows what it means, do you know what I mean, by its actions.
So you think deliberately decide to move headquarters of agencies?
Well, especially state agencies that they have a say over.
Didn't we try that?
We tried.
Didn't Charlie McCreevy try that?
Yeah, we tried decentralisation without the connectivity.
Yeah.
Yes,
without the connectivity. I mean, it's absolute rubbish to have the Department of Agriculture down in Kerry, and it's not, by the way. I'm only picking that as an example. Yeah. If the whole country hasn't connectivity to Kerry.
Yeah. Careful, we'll have the Healy rays on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, look at that. I'm beginning to take my hat off to them, by the way.
Or put it on, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Imelda.
Again, just to come back to again what we were saying earlier, and Sharon mentioned, about providing that uplift to people that don't have a voice, and coming back to what you were saying, Neil, earlier as well. I mean, how to bring about change in policy? We have to have different people in local government. We have to have different people in government, So it's not diversified enough, so we don't have those voices. So how are we going to bring about change, And I suppose locally, what has happened, the City of Sanctuary campaign that's going on at the moment, and we delivered linked into Anyway Galway a Sanctuary in Politics programme there over the summer, where we encouraged as many people as possible that are in the direct provision centres and all the rest to be a part of that. So I do think locally, the more that we encourage people that feel that they're not a part, that don't have a voice, we need to do that as well on a very local level, so that we can make changes. And it's going to be slow, Neil. I don't know what the answer is, but unless we have people, unless we have more women, more people that
more
are Irish,
imagination.
Yeah. Coming back to our hero earlier, who had the confidence as well to move from one way of thinking to another, So,
could I just say, one of the privileges of running in an election, whether you win or not, is you tap into a vein. You tap into wonderful proposals and solutions. And one I got on the campaign recently was, instead of FDI, which is foreign direct investment, what about rural direct investment? And we have so many young people that go abroad and they see enterprises working elsewhere. Now, there's no reason why government can't give those people a break, a tax break, if you look at the way foreign direct investment works here. So I'm attracting a new Google into Ireland. We put all the services of the state at their disposal. Why don't we put all the services of the state at the disposal of an Irish person who would like to return home and maybe set up a business in rural Ireland? That's what I would call rural direct investment. But they need to be given a chance to get up off their feet. And then we have the young woman here from rural Roscommon who might enjoy living in rural Roscommon.
I hope she enjoys living in Galway now, but at the same time,
Very much so.
But we
this is Galway Politics Live. It's not rural Roscommon Live. But nevertheless, we'd still encourage. No, I mean the principle is valid.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So we're getting a few more comments in as well too. And Eleanor Howe, one of our regular listeners, was asking how the panel feel about such topics as civic pride. We brought that up last week, and it might be interesting just to get maybe a brief discussion going on.
Yes, we had a 5 white men panel last week, and we asked that question. So it's important to ask the question.
3 white ladies and 2 white men.
Well, we're not answering the question.
So Sharon, Imelda, would you like to say first of all civic pride?
Well, as I said, I'm a proud Galwegian and always have been. You know, I think we live in a fantastic city and with fantastic opportunities. But it's really important, I think, that we again try and work at a very young age to ensure that people are engaged in activities and actions that ensure that we're looking after one another and looking after people globally, and I think again the importance of being involved in volunteering and all the rest is something that's really important, so
would you think that our civic pride has slipped a little, and could it be improved?
I don't actually. I suppose in relation to where I'm involved, again, I'm biased, I suppose, in terms of working in the university, where we have a fantastic, amazing group of young people who are linked into a very active volunteering program called Alive. I'm surrounded by people that are hugely engaged in terms of their pride in doing work, and also I suppose in relation to my own work as head of the Access Centre at NUI Galway, where people haven't been given an opportunity, an educational opportunity to make a difference in their own personal lives, but also in their families and their communities and so on. I am just constantly amazed by what they want to give back. And it's not just to people that are linked into NUI Galway, but it's just across the city and across the world, So again, it's just, I suppose, my own personal experience.
And what about Sharon? Do you think we've lost our civic pride, or did we ever have it, or is it there to lose? Or
I think, personally, I have a very complicated relationship with civic pride, because I think that for myself, one of the things that made me proud to kind of be in Galway was being comfortable to be myself in Galway or in Ireland, and comfortable to be able to hold my girlfriend's hand without being afraid, comfortable to be able to talk about these things, comfortable to that we're welcoming people of different marginalizations, different abilities, and some things have improved, and it's amazing to feel that I can just casually be oh, my girlfriend and I now, where even 3 or 4 years ago, I'd just be oh, I'm my partner, don't ask any questions, that's fine. And there's such a comfort in that growth and wanting to fight to get that kind of comfort and safety for as many people as possible is going to keep firing me on for as long as I have to be, and holding on to it as well, because you can't get complacent. But I think that I do a lot of volunteering in the community, and I think that it's so great to see those community initiatives, but also on a maybe more kind of national front, I don't always feel particularly proud, because I feel that there's so many struggles that are coming for systemic reasons, where we have a whole generation of people who are going to be long-term renters, and we're not doing supports for that, where job opportunities are drying up, where we've been the children who kind of lived through, who were promised all of these things growing up, as children in the Celtic Tiger, and then as adults in the recession, where it's like, oh, all those things we told you about, no, sorry, they're gone. And we're constantly hearing, oh, things are getting better, but like, or healthcare is in a shambles, or housing market is in a shambles. The fact that our housing is just seen as a private commodity, and we're not looking at more public solutions of ways that we can adjust this. Like, I find it difficult to be proud of those things while, still being able to enjoy the small wins and seeing like how much we have changed on some areas.
Excellent.
So it's reality versus theory.
Yeah.
Another aspect of it too, Fidelma, you might address is the actual state of Galway City itself. One of the aspects of civic pride that I was bringing up last week rather was, the fact that the city isn't cleaned after say 6 or 7 o'clock at night. And as you would know, it's very, very busy, especially now with the Arts Festival and all the stuff going on. And, we were wondering, would the councillors address this? Or how do you feel about how Galway looks?
Well, I think, I live in Mari.
Yes.
And it's a wonderful local community. And there's a huge spirit of volunteerism there. Mm-hmm. So I think that, first of all, it's a local issue. Do you follow me? Now, a place like Galway City is not just a local for everybody. Yeah. It's where we need to communally pitch in. So I completely agree with you that both certainly the city councillors need to look at this, because Galway City is the driver for the region.
Yes.
It's the driver industrially, it's the driver educationally, but particularly third level, and it's the driver entertainment-wise. So it takes extra measures. And I thought it was interesting, I think that other councillor, he mentioned something about having a nightmare. And I thought, it is a nightmare seeing the rubbish everywhere. But he meant N-I-G-H-T, M-A-Y-O-R. And I thought, there's a novel idea.
It is a very novel idea, a very good one.
Yes, that is worth looking at. But could I just say this point? At school level, educationally, we really emphasise civic pride. We emphasise the notion of volunteerism. Yeah,
and the green flags, for example, is tremendous in Galway.
But it takes leadership. And maybe every school doesn't do it because it's about leadership within the school.
Although every school in Galway has got green flags,
and that's
which
really brilliant.
Is the first in the world, I believe.
But may I say, there is... I would have loved to be the Minister for Education. Right?
And you may still, Fidelma. You're not dead yet, either of you.
We might even do a joint pact.
You do a joint Ministers for Education,
Can I just say that in Singapore, right now, there is, how we have TY, the transition year?
Yeah.
Well, there's this year, and I was looking at this as a proposal when I was in Fine Gael. I never did run with it though, to be honest, that the year after you do your Leaving Cert, that there would be a year there. Because a lot of kids make such bad decisions about college. Imelda knows this, like I do, that up to 30% of kids make bad choices. And they're dropping out after the first term in third level or after the first year. If there was a 1 year hiatus there.
Sort of a national service type of thing, like in Germany, or a civic service.
A civic service, exactly. And they got credit, including points for volunteerism. I'll tell you, that's an investment in society. And they're the type of things that I think we need to be looking at, because we build it in as part of your formative practice. Things we learn early in our lives, they become part of us. It's actually harder to change as you get older.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my two importance.
Two little points there. First of all, back to the nightmare. And I must say,
nightmare.
I discussed this with the current mayor, who feels he's both a day and a nightmare. So we'll give Mike Howard a bit of credit as well.
He doesn't think he's a nightmare now, it's spelled the other way. He thinks he's
so far I think his fellow councillors don't believe he's a nightmare. Yeah. The other question, we've just had a very interesting one in from Richard Noonan, speaking of Murray. So Richard would like to know, Imelda, and of course to the rest of the panel as well too. What do you think about the new Airbnb policy?
That's putting it up to you.
That's putting it up to you, Imelda.
Well, I think it's the right way to go, really. Do you know? I mean, I'm not, as I said, I can't say that I know.
Restricting Airbnbs?
Yes. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Because actually, I was reading recently about it was in one of the papers yesterday around the normal B&Bs. There are some amazing ones, and I suppose again it's part of our or the way Ireland used to be. Do you know what I mean? That and B&Bs were the place to go. So I have to say I'm not familiar technically with the ins and outs of the new policy, but I think the little bit I do know, I think it is. I think it's the right way to go.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay, we're coming.
Yeah.
We've got
Can
about
I-
3 minutes left, so
Can I-
please do address it. Yeah.
I have a lot of feelings on Airbnb
Yeah.
because
Well, let him go. Go.
well, no, because like I live in an apartment in the west end of the city, which I'm very lucky to, because so many of our neighbouring houses are now Airbnbs. So we've lost our neighbours, we've lost that culture, and frankly, like I think it's a good start, but I don't think it goes far enough at all. Like I think that the model of Airbnbs is one of the a huge resurgence on rent, and it's causing the rents to skyrocket because landlords are able to make work. At the previous stage, they were able to make more money renting out an apartment on Airbnb than having long-term tenants. So why would you? You could just have like different people coming in every couple of nights, maybe one weekend a month. Like it was like this really flawed system when it was a system that was made for, or that was identified for, you know, renting out a spare room maybe once a month, or like doing a house swap while you're on holidays for a week. But we have like in Berlin or in some cities in Canada where they've just outlawed it completely, and it's seen that rents have dramatically dropped, and it's been and because it's about building a city for the people who are living in the city rather than just the tourists who are coming to visit for a fleeting weekend, and that you have
But surely
that
they can be accommodated in hotels anyway, and
Exactly,
if we build a
there's
student
so many
accommodation,
different-
we you know, that can be used during the summer. Isn't that perhaps a better way to do it than
But that's what
renting
we
out
currently do.
people's houses?
Yeah. Like, because even Carb Village and a lot of the student accommodation, like even Glenaree, is it Glenaree? I know one of the ones over near June, my partner, she lived there when she was in college, but now there's people that rent there 12 months of the year because of the housing shortages.
Yeah.
And which is
kinda
another
wrong.
difficulty.
That's not ideal.
I think there's a difference. I actually have no difficulty with Airbnb in people's homes if they're looking to subsidise their income and pay their bills. I think when you go out and rent houses deliberately
Full houses.
to run Airbnbs, and that's where I have a difficulty.
And that's what
with.
the policy is.
Yeah.
It's targeting those
And
people
that's-
rather than...
So I think that difference is an important distinction to make.
Yeah, that if you have a spare room in your
Yes.
house anyway,
If it's your own-
what's the harm?
If it's your home,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean?
But
And
if
plus
it's a full house,
it
takes
does
up the
add
house from the
choice,
family.
and it does. I believe, you know, I know that people feel they've had incredible experiences because you're getting a window into people's lives through this. But renting out houses and shall we say, disrupting the rental market, that I have difficulty with.
So maybe one final question, a brief one, Neil, before we head, would be to the panel again. What would you say to aspiring future female politicians? Maybe starting off with Imelda this time.
Including yourselves, perhaps, all of you.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I had an amazing experience, even though I didn't get elected. I think up until the actual outcome, I enjoyed every single minute of it, and more than with Mike and Sharon, you know, that there was great camaraderie when we were out and all the rest. So for anybody out there, any woman out there, if you really have a passion and an interest, I would say go for it. It's just an amazing learning experience, and it can only build you up as a person, whatever the outcome is, you know. So,
What about you, Sharon?
I think it would be to take that chance to actually do it, because similar to Imelda, like I have no regrets of putting myself forward and running. It was such an amazing learning opportunity and such a great way to get to know your community in a completely different way. And I think that if you are interested in, like, reach out to people who are involved and ask them questions, because I think that, like, I know one of the things that I struggled with was with being in a newer party. I was like, there's less people to ask for experience. What am I going to do? But I have to say that some of the, like, local representatives, they were so friendly and so welcoming. So not to be afraid to ask, and definitely just jump at those opportunities. They're well worth it.
Good, very positive.
Fidelma, you've had a few experiences now, and you did very well in the recent European
Okay,
elections.
well,
You
thank
all
you.
did well, actually. You all did extremely well.
Neil. Well, first of all, believe in yourself, but crucially, build a network around you. Do that long before you run. I have to say, I learned that on the job rather than before I ran. Test out policies, start writing about them, and watch your back. Because again, that was something I wasn't good at. And, you know, I was, you know, crushed at times.
Yeah.
And, you know, we said something earlier about Madeleine Albright's thing
Yes.
about women, there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. I'd be kind of inclined to agree with that politically, because I helped certainly 2 or 3 women that are in Leinster House now be in the roles they're in, and that was not reciprocated. But that's for another day. So you know, it's a cruel business because there's only one place sometimes.
So therefore it gets
It gets very cruel.
gets scrappy.
But I don't regret a minute of it, because I think we get one chance at life, and the only question we have to answer is, have you enriched that life by perhaps being a voice for others? What have you done privately as a result of the position you were given? Do you know what I mean? Everything we do isn't measurable. So if you feel you can live with yourself and sleep easy at night as a result of the decisions you've made, then go for it.
So the message from everybody is give it a go.
Yes.
Just give it a go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Message to all young women.
Yeah.
Just Mike, I think that brings us to the end of the show. I mean, I'd like to invite people to sort of tune in, you know, on future weeks. We're giving it a break for August, but you know, we're available on social media, and you know, like us on Twitter. You know, sort of sign up to our Facebook page. We have a YouTube channel as well, which we'd like people to subscribe to.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
the main thing, really, positive debate, positive discussions, and I'd like to thank all our panelists, because
And
it
I'd
was
like to thank you
a
guys for
magnificent
doing it.
discussion
Seriously,
today.
well
So thank you
done.
very much.
Very well done.
Thank you very much.
Glad to have you.
And Mike,
Imelda,
Thank
Sharon,
you.
and Fidelma, thank you.
last
very
word to you,
much.
Mike.
Well, the last little bit is we do hope to do 1 or 2 summer specials over August, possibly one in Galway United and one in the music scene here in Galway too, you know. So we'll be putting those up, and you can keep an eye out for them. And otherwise, we're back with a debate on the environment in September, and we've debates coming up on what was the other one we were going to do? Disability and mental health. So the other ones we're rolling out.
And if anybody has any ideas,
Great
we're
topic.
very much
We're
open to
open
them.
to Absolutely.
Great
So-
topics.
So
yeah.
thanks again to all the panel for coming today and for taking such part in it, and thank you,
And
Neil.
thanks to everybody for watching.
And
Thank you.
2 more people to must thank: our research assistant Rachel and our sound control Adam. So thank you both very much.
Thank
guys.
you.
Good, 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 good.
Okay, have a good Sunday.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.